Hi, folks. Welcome to Crisco's Corner. Unfiltered commentary. And not your truth, the real truth. Please like, share, and subscribe. And as always, thank you for your support. Welcome back. Put together a short collection of clips to show you the ridiculousness that's going on now in our country, and especially in the executive branch. It's funny, you don't hear anything now that this mandatory vaccine demand has come from the president. You don't hear about Afghanistan. You don't hear about the huge debt we're piling up. You don't hear about the crisis at the border. Democrats do what Democrats always do when they're painted into a corner or oppressed. They double down. So let's see a few clips, and I'll give you what I think.
A change in tone is something that gets thrown around a lot when we describe politics and political leaders like the President of the United States. That was more than a change of tone. That was a change in substance.
Oh, this is a 180, absolutely, from where Biden was. I mean, as President-elect Biden, he really backed away from the idea of federal mandates.
Vaccination requirements in school.
Now, what she's saying is, in a nice way, he lied. He absolutely lied. And so yesterday, President Biden, I'll be respectful unlike the other side, they say Donald Trump instead of President Trump, and they said Donald Trump when he was president. I did an episode called Biden has crossed the Rubicon. Any of that know any history, it means basically there's no going back now. When Caesar crossed the Rubicon with his army, it was considered an act of war, and he was having treason against the Republic. This is what Biden is doing. They doubled down, and now there's no going back. They have to press forward with this authoritarian position and hope that they win. I don't see how, only if the American people let them get away with it. Let's listen.
Schools are nothing new. They work. They're overwhelmingly supported by educators and their unions.
Let's tell the truth here. The NEA has billions and billions of dollars in dues, and they give hundreds of millions to the congressional, Senate campaigns, presidential campaigns. They have grassroots organizations to organize people on the ground by the hundreds of thousands. That's who you're kowtowing to. You could give a good damn about the children or the teachers. Do I say that you personally don't like children? Of course not. This is politics and this is survival. And you will do what you need to do to stay in power.
And all school officials trying to do the right thing by our children, I'll always be on your side. Let me be blunt. My plan also takes on elected officials in states that are undermining you and these life-saving actions. Right now, local school officials are trying to keep children safe in a pandemic while their governor picks a fight with them and even threatens their salaries or their jobs. Talk about bullying in schools. If they'll not help, if these governors won't help us beat the pandemic, I'll use my power as president to get them out of the way.
Now, that is an incredible statement. What he's saying is governors are purposely exercising their authority and hurting children. And I, as President of the United States, will push them out of the way, going against every single word in the Constitution. The day that George Washington was sworn in and took the oath, the Constitution was in place. It's been in place ever since. One size does not fit all. Centralized government is not the answer. That has been the key to our survival and prosperity for over 200 years. Unlike Europe and the parliamentary system, which the founders rejected. You just went to war with the Constitution of the United States. And you might win, President Biden. You might take the Constitution and wipe your butt with it. It might happen. I pray that it doesn't. The people that elected a governor, say in Utah or Kansas or Alabama, anywhere for that matter, do not have the same exact thoughts as the people in Washington. One size does not fit all. That's why we have an electoral college. We are really, in all fairness, a bunch of small countries put together that cooperated under a federal government which was created by the states for oversight. You are not the king. You accuse Donald Trump of being a dictator. My God, my God, my God. You are now going to war with the governors. You're dividing this country. It's like you want it to split up. Maybe that's your goal in the end. I said before, this is the first time in my lifetime that a sitting president has purposely and knowingly done something to undermine and hurt the country that he or she took an oath to protect. The first time ever you purposely hurt your own country. And for what?
Requirement for people at a business with more than 100 people. It is not a requirement for migrants at the southern border. Why?
That's correct. Go ahead.
And then,
Now, I showed that short clip, and this is the clip in context. And what was said just prior to that. It's, I'm trying not to be disrespectful or hurtful, but this woman is so condescending and so arrogant. In other words, listen, we know what's right. You don't. So sit down and shut up. I mean, you reporters, you're just pests. We're in charge. We will do what we think is right, and we don't care because we know we're right. And if the American people don't like it, we know what's best for them.
why is it that you're trying to require anybody with a job or anybody who goes to school to get the COVID-19 vaccine, but you are not requiring that of migrants that continue walking across the southern border into the country?
Well, look, our objective is to get as many people vaccinated across the country as humanly possible. And so the president's announcement yesterday.
So then having hundreds of thousands of illegal, I'll say aliens, she says migrants, whatever, tomato. Having hundreds of thousands of migrants, and I've seen about 18 to 20% test positive for COVID, and spread them all over the United States is very counterproductive to stopping COVID. It's like you want it to spread, so it gives you more authority, more power. I'm missing the end game here. I really am.
Was an effort to empower businesses, to give businesses the tools to...
I had a small business. Now, I didn't have a lot of employees, but I had a small business. Empower them to do what? That if you don't do what we tell you, if you have over 100 employees, we will fine you $14,000 per incident. Is that per day or is that per employee? So that means if you have 100 employees, you have to pay $1.4 million in fines to OSHA. This is total bullshit. You're not empowering anybody. It's blackmail. It's extortion. Because the American people won't go along with you. Because you've been so cockamamie in your expression of how the science and the vaccine and COVID and everything else, you've been all over the map. No wonder people don't believe in you because they don't trust you. You say one thing, then do another. Then you do one thing and then say another over and over and over. You said not 60 days ago that the federal government does not have the authority to put mandates in for vaccines. Then you turn around and do this. No one trusts you. No one. And your condescending attitude is not helping.
Protect their workforces. That's exactly what we did. But certainly we want everybody to get vaccinated, and more people are vaccinated with.
If the vaccines are doing so well, why are people getting COVID after they get it? You've mentioned 0.0 about immunity. People have already had it. They have antibodies that last much longer than the vaccine. You're forcing people that have had COVID to take the vaccine. I'm not a doctor. Listen to yours. I am not a doctor, but it makes zero sense, makes zero common sense to force people to give up their medical histories so they can go into a restaurant. Give up their medical history so they can go to work. And she's got that look, the same as Biden and all these progressives and leftists. We know what's best for you. Sit down and shut up. Like we're 3 years old and you're our parent. That's the problem. Centralized government. We're the parent. You're the child. Shut up and do what I tell you.
Whether they are migrants or whether they are workers, protects more people in the United States.
But it's a requirement for people at a business with more than 100 people. It is not a requirement for migrants at the southern border. Why?
That's correct. Go ahead.
And look at this look. This look of disgust. Like, do I really have to be here? Like your 13-year-old child. This is ridiculous. Disgust. Look at the look on her face. I'm right. You're wrong. I know what's best for you. Why don't you just shut the F up? But I have to go through this dog and pony show because Fox and some of the other conservative people are in the press room. I know what's best. If it was up to me, I wouldn't be out here at all. It's disgusting. This is what calling on the mandate, so you can barely hear it, but somebody's calling on that some of the governors will go to the courts concerning vaccine mandates for employers with more than 100 employees and all teachers.
Requirements and overreach. You are threatening to challenge it in court.
Have at it. Look.
Did you notice when he said have at it, one person clapped. One.
I am so disappointed that particularly some Republican governors have been so cavalier with the health of these kids.
Cavalier with the health of small children. Republican governors. You ass. Did you give a good damn about these kids and these teenagers when they were locked up for months at a time? When the suicide rate among young teens went up 300%? The mental and emotional scars from lockdowns by your draconian Democrat governors will cause harm their whole lives. Irreversible. God knows how many billions of dollars it will take in therapy as they grow older. You're worried about little kids? When you have drag queen story hour? When you can tell 3-year-olds they can be a boy and a girl whenever they want to? You don't give a good damn about children. This is about saving your ass. And here's the weird part. You live in this bubble of God knows how many small amount of people that you're constantly in contact with that always tell you how great you are and how right you are. You have no clue what goes on in the rest of the country. None.
So cavalier with the health of their communities.
Senator, the president had a lot to say yesterday, and he didn't say your name, but obviously was referring to you. What did you have to say to him back when it came to about the mask mandates?
Well, I would just say generally, when you're taking action that's unconstitutional, that threatens the jobs of the people in my state, many thousands of jobs, I'm standing for them. We're going to protect their jobs against federal overreach. And this is a guy who criticizes the state of Florida for protecting parents' rights. He says school boards should be able to eliminate parents' rights and force 5-year-old kids to wear masks all day. That's what he...
And that's not about masks. It's not about vaccines. They're missing the entire point. They're missing the entire point. When I say they, I mean these progressive and leftist idiots. these ideologues that just it overwhelms their brain. I know what's best. Oh, you're the parent? Well, you don't count. You don't count. We are 50 separate states. The state of Florida has elected this governor, and other states have elected other governors. They're handling it as they see fit as per their election. And I don't want to hear, well, John, people voted for Biden, so he has to say, no, it's not one size fits all. Centralized government never, ever works. One size does not fit all. And that's the attitude. I'm the president. I know what's best. Sit down and shut up like you're a child. I'm a school board member. I know what's best for your children in this school district. Sit down and shut up. It's all the same attitude. Always.
He thinks is appropriate government, yet here he comes from Washington, D.C., instituting an unprecedented mandate, which even his own people have acknowledged in the past is not constitutional. That's not leadership. And I think the problem I have with Joe Biden more than anything, this guy doesn't take responsibility for anything.
Yeah, that's the thing. Responsibility for anything. For the disaster and the pullout in Afghanistan. You got this. You got that. For the trillions and trillions of dollars in debt that we've run up that we can never pay back and will eventually have to default and destroy our currency. You got this from the press. When you have hundreds of thousands, over 1 million illegal aliens crossing into the border, many of them carrying COVID, spread and secretly flown and bussed all over the country, especially in the red states, that way he can pay them back for not voting for him. You got this from the press. Yeah, he's never held accountable for anything. Couldn't agree more.
He's always trying to blame other people, blame other states. This is a guy that promised when he ran for president that he would shut down the virus. If you look now, there's 300% more cases in this country today than a year ago when we had no vaccines at all. So his policies are not working. He's doubling down on things that are going to be very destructive for the livelihoods of many, many Americans, and obviously going to be destructive to our constitutional system and the rule of law. And so these are times when you believe in that Constitution, you got to stand up. And obviously the substantive issue is important because there are places that are going to toss aside people they've worked this whole time throughout COVID. Now all of a sudden they should be tossed aside. They were working when nobody had vaccine. You don't know their history. You don't know why they're making decisions that they're making. Many of these people have already recovered and they have immunity. The idea that...
That's the other thing. What about this immunity that people have that already have it? They say 80% in some studies. Why is that never talked about ever? If you have immunity, is it okay to take the vaccine on top of it? I'm not a doctor, but nobody will answer these questions. No one will answer the questions.
That somehow you have somebody that gets a Johnson & Johnson, they can work, but someone that's got natural immunity somehow can't. That natural immunity is strong. So it's not based on science, and you can say he's saying he's losing patience with people. You know, at the end of the day, we don't live with a one-person rule in this country. We live in a constitutional system which people's rights are respected, but particularly in this juncture, their livelihoods and their jobs have to be protected. I mean, just think about, what this mandate would do. It's going to drive people out of work, out of hospitals, out of all this stuff where you have a need for people. So it's totally counterproductive.
Do you trust that?
Now I'm going to show you a couple of clips. This one was before the election last year with then Senator Kamala Harris.
In the situation where we're in now, that the public health experts and the scientists will get the last word on the efficacy of a vaccine?
If past is prologue, that they will not. They'll be muzzled. They'll be suppressed. They will be sidelined.
You mean like Dr. Fauci? Those guys ran their mouths for months. Remember the daily press conferences and Trump's numbers were starting to go up? President Trump's numbers were starting to go up. Oh, they don't want him around anymore. Don't do the press conferences. And that's how sneaky she is when she's asked if she'll take the vaccine if it comes out.
Because he's looking at an election coming up in less than 60 days, and he's grasping for whatever he can get to pretend that he has been a leader on this issue when he is not.
So let's just say there's a vaccine that is approved and even distributed before the election. Would you get it?
Well, I think that's going to be an issue for all of us.
Yes, that's going to be an issue for all of us, a choice to make. Funny how that works. And once you were sworn in as vice president, that choice was taken away from everybody. Isn't that interesting?
I will say that I would not trust Donald Trump, and it would have to be a credible source of information that talks about the.
See, she's too cowardly to say no, and she can't say yes because it'll give Trump credit. These people suck.
Efficacy and the reliability of whatever he's talking about. I will not take his word.
What would a Biden administration do in January and February that a Trump administration wouldn't do? Would you impose new lockdowns for businesses and schools and hotspots? A federal mandate to wear masks? You have 2 minutes to respond without interruption.
Thank you, Susan. Well, the American people have witnessed what is the greatest failure of any presidential administration in the history of our country.
Absolutely right. I couldn't agree more. The greatest failure of any administration. I'm not so sure of the history of the country. It's damn near if it's not. At least in my lifetime, and I'll be 65 the end of this year. Yeah, a complete failure on every single front. Economy, military, foreign policy, domestic policy, you name it, you failed. Not only haven't you just failed, you failed absolutely, incredibly, miserably on all of those issues. All of them. Look at Afghanistan. Look at the southern border. Look at all that free money you gave out so nobody wants to go to work. 10.9 million jobs. I went to the grocery store the other night. There were 7 registers open, all self-serve. And they weren't self-serve before, and I asked the supervisor because I was there getting stamps for my mother. What's going on? We can't find anybody to work. It's a grocery store giving out $500 sign-up bonuses, and they can't find people. This is the America that you've created. And in 6 months, 6 months, shame on you. Until the next time, goodbye and good luck.